special guest tonight. We've got Jake Crain from Crain and Company with us tonight. What's up, Jake?
Oh man, just got some football going right now. Ready for another weekend of football. I know some people say it's not the biggest weekend of college football, but look, as long as we're playing football, I'm happy.
That's so true. Absolutely, I agree with you. We want to welcome you to College SportsCast and welcome you to the show. We appreciate you being with us tonight and talking a little football with us. I know you guys are on the Daily Wire. Is that correct?
Yeah, Daily Wire. Easiest way to reach us on YouTube. I mean, it's Crain and Company, Crain and Company. Head over there, hit subscribe. We just hit over 100,000 subs, so really excited about that. And yeah, talk a lot of football. If you got live call-ins and a live chat, it's a good time.
That's cool. We appreciate you being with us. Hammonds, you got a question for Jake?
Not off the bat. I just kind of wanted to hear his thoughts on the Texas-Alabama game from last week. It was an intense battle Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I picked Texas going undefeated, making the playoff. Kind of stuck with my pick of them going into Tuscaloosa and being able to pull out the win. Just, because look, it comes down to personnel mixed with the coaching staff. I'm not a trends guy. If trends stayed the same, nobody'd ever get better, nobody'd ever get worse. And you look at what Texas returned up front on the offensive line. You returned 5 of your top 6 pass catchers. You bring in A.D. Mitchell from Georgia. You have some young but very capable backs, the tight end that's effective. And Steve Sarkisian, having a chance to dial it up, one of the best play callers, one of the witchiest of the witches out there when it comes to putting his team in a position and have a quarterback like Quinn Ewers that can make all the throws. Offense has really never been the problem for Texas. It's been defense and what they brought into the portal, what they've been able to develop in that front seven. And you saw it. They were able to get after Jalen Milroe, and Quinn Ewers left the game with a jersey as clean as when he walked in there. So I think it shows you kind of where Texas is right now. They finally have the personnel to do it. And as long as they stay focused and not let prosperity be a problem, this is a team that's really going to keep making some noise.
I agree. So we had a little debate topic our show on Tuesday night, and I said, with Texas' big win, is Texas ready for the SEC?
Well, look, I mean, it's one of those things. You're not going to know until they're able to go through it. The common misconception isn't, can you beat Alabama in a one-off? Can you beat Georgia in a one-off? The hardest part of the SEC is having to go through the grind of that schedule. I mean, Vanderbilt is still Vanderbilt, it looks like, but outside of that, every week's a fist fight, and Clark Lee's building that place up. It's not easy to go to Ole Miss. It's not easy to go to Mississippi State. It's not easy to then turn around and play Arkansas or LSU. So I think the strength of the SEC has always been the grind of it. I mean, it's a battle of attrition. And when you look at the league and kind of the trajectory of where it's going, Tennessee is building. You see what they've been able to accomplish and the direction they're going. I believe Shane Beamer in South Carolina are on the way up. That offensive line's got to improve, but it will over time with how they're developing offensive linemen and the way they've recruited. So, yeah, I think Texas is one of the few programs that can come in the SEC and be able to have the NIL abilities that they have to bring in players that can compete. But again, it's I've never been to prison, but I guess you don't know if you can handle prison until you've been in there for a while. And going to the SEC, you're not going to know until you're in there and you're throwing punches.
So that begs me to ask you about Tennessee. They travel to Florida this weekend in a big tilt in the SEC. Where do you see that game going?
Well, look, Tennessee hasn't won down there since 2003, but it's a new team. It's a new circumstance. Obviously, it feels like both these programs are going in different directions. Even though, going back and looking at the Utah game, Graham Mertz actually played better than what I thought he was going to be able to play. But Florida's got to be able to have some semblance of balance on offense when it comes to run pass. They really weren't able to run the ball successfully, really didn't try north to south. A lot of it was lateral. And then obviously they got, hurt themselves with penalties in big moments. You look at the special team penalty that extended the drive. I mean, going all the way back to the first drive of the game against Utah, where they get into 3rd and 1 off a jet sweep, get a false start, end up getting in 3rd and 6, have to punt, and Utah hits them with a bomb the first play. So when I look at this game, Joe Milton's got to show it to me. Look, is Florida the best team in the SEC? No, but I think they're going to have to make him throw through tight windows and make the routine throws routine. I do think Tennessee wins, but I think Florida covers. I think this is a tight game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. One of my favorite bets of the weekend is the under. I got it at 59. It's at 58.5 right now. So give me the Vols because, look, I think people kind of always talk about Joe Milton and the warp drive offense and, what Josh Heupel wants to do on offense. I think Tennessee's pretty damn good on defense, too, when you look at him. And he's really upgraded that program up front. We always say on Crain and Company, you want to go from the duplex to the suburbs the quickest, get better up front. I don't think enough people talk about that.
So I'm going to go to another question. There's not a big slate this weekend. It's kind of dull in a way, except for a couple games. What's one underrated game that you're looking at on the schedule that says, hey, this might be a really good football game?
Well, yeah, being the football junkie I am, as long as there's games being played, I'm going to be excited about it. But look, I always like when opposite styles meet each other. You look at Minnesota going to North Carolina. The way Minnesota handles their business, kind of more methodical, want to run the ball, play action, run the clock. North Carolina, even though Phil Longo's gone up to Wisconsin, they want to throw it around a little bit. They want to get Drake May on the move. They want to let him put pressure on defenses. North Carolina's defense looked very improved week 1 against South Carolina and then took a step back in week 2 against App State. So does that tell you more about South Carolina? Does that tell you more about North Carolina's defense? But I do know this about Minnesota. They're going to make you earn it. They're going to find out. They're going to try and move you around and see how you respond to it. And if North Carolina is able to just sustain, I think North Carolina wins that one in Chapel Hill. I think the line's at 7.5. I wouldn't touch it, with a 20-foot pole. But at the end of the day, I just like when different styles meet each other. We're seeing it tonight right now as we're talking in Memphis and Navy, and that game's 14 up at halftime. So I always find that interesting. You look around that there's some sneaky matchups. You got a bitter rivalry in New Mexico State. My buddy's the OC out there at New Mexico, hoping they can put up some points. But you look around, there's some sneaky matchups, man. South Alabama going out to Oklahoma State, 7.5-point underdog. My alma mater out there, seeing if they can do something after kind of a letdown start against Tulane. They didn't play as well as I thought they would. I know Kane knows that, but there's some good matchups up there. You just got to kind of dig in and find them a little bit.
They are, and then you got LSU, Mississippi State. That's another game that's a big one on the docket. You got Arkansas and BYU. But my next question is, how did you get into all this? I know your dad played football for Auburn growing up. And, I mean, was it something you always wanted to do, or is it just
No, man, this all happened by accident. I coached for 9 years, six and a half at the Division I level, and I was actually interviewing for the defensive coordinator job where I was coaching up in Montana when COVID hit, and they sent us all back and sent all the players back home because this is when nobody really knew what was going on with COVID in 2020, and I was trying to kind of waste time before we went back up there. Again, our head coach was like, I don't know exactly when everybody's coming back up. So I went and bought a $50 mic and just kind of started talking some ball into it. Really started out regionally with Auburn. Got hit up by some investors a couple weeks in. I mean, it took all the technological knowledge that I had to get the audio on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It wasn't on video. And some investors hit me up, were like, hey, we're listening to this. It's performing really well. Would this be something you'd be willing to move to Atlanta and think about doing for a living? And I was like, no, like I'm young, I'm moving up the coaching ranks, liking my trajectory. And, they made an offer that I really couldn't refuse and went up there, got put on video by a production company run by a guy named David Cohn, who's now a co-host of the show, and put it on video. And Hugh Freeze at Liberty was the first interview I did up there on video. Was doing a lot on audio. And within 4 months, Colin Cowherd reached out. We signed a 6-month deal with the Volume to be the college football show over there. And then when we were renegotiating that, Ben Shapiro DM'd me and wanted us to be the sports show for the Daily Wire. So I haven't even really been doing this for 3 years. It's been kind of a crazy experience. I'm just waiting to wake up from a coma and let them tell me which 18-wheeler hit me on what road. So yeah, it was kind of just organic, man. Like the best things are.
And I know you started. I remember you as J Boy. Everybody knew you as J Boy, and that's really where you got it really started, and then it kind of just evolved to where you are now.
Yeah,
And,
people still call me that. It's still in my Twitter profile, and it started out as the J Boy Show and morphed into Crain and Company, and just has taken off, man. It's crazy.
So what's it like working with your brother and Cone? I say it's a treat sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's fantastic. I think kind of what separates us is we work for the Daily Wire, but I mean we don't really get political outside of men not being in women's sports. But I don't even think that's political. I think that's why you look both ways before you cross the street. It's just common sense.
Yeah.
But no, I mean working with my brother's great. He played receiver at Western Colorado. Cone played quarterback at Michigan. It's we it's kind of like an old school sports show. I mean we get down to the nitty gritty, but we have fun. I always say it's like if you got to sneak into the field house of your favorite football team or sports team and you got to hang around with the coaches while they drank beer and just talked about the what's going on. And because again, we're fortunate enough to have inside knowledge of the game. I mean, if you listen to the show for 5 minutes, you'll know what I'm talking about. But it's great, man. I mean, we get along, we argue sometimes, but it's really good chemistry and I really enjoy going to work.
What's been, your biggest surprise and which has been your biggest letdown as far as college football teams this year? Because, Texas is, they're on the up and up. A lot of people wasn't real sure what they're going to do, and then they go into Alabama and they win. And, give me your takes on those.
Well, I mean, surprise has got to be Colorado, right? Not just that they're winning, but the way they've won. You've got two different experiments going on. You've got one where we've seen teams and new coaches bring in a lot of players from the portal. We've never seen the amount that Deion Sanders brought in. Football's the ultimate team sport. Trying to get guys, that many new guys from different places to come in and be able to work together and really win by letting the other team make mistakes. I mean, Colorado's played pretty clean. They're not the best team up front, but you look at Nebraska. I mean, they fell apart, post Malone style. You go back to week 1, they let TCU make the mistakes and let their identity kind of take over. And then on the other hand, you got Travis Hunter, the Shohei Ohtani of college football out here playing 125, 130 snaps a game. We've never seen that before. So Colorado, without a doubt, who's going to be 3-0 after this weekend against Colorado State is got to be the biggest surprise. I'd say the biggest letdown so far probably be the Southeastern Conference, to be honest with you, in general. Not that, the SEC is bad, but we're so used to seeing the SEC dominate. And then you look at North Carolina beat South Carolina. You look at what FSU did to LSU. I mean, even going all the way to Wake Forest, beating Vanderbilt. It seems that, the mix of the new quarterbacks at the top for the SEC and really in general, and that blended with the transfer portal that's kind of rose, a rising tide lifts all ships. I think we've seen some middle of the ground Power 5 teams really kind of move up and be able to replace some guys with experienced guys and have success. So I would say the SEC and then Wisconsin, kind of the way they played at Washington State. They're kind of one of my sleeper teams this year. Still a long way to go. Plenty of opportunities ahead of them, including Ohio State at home. I'm big on Luke Fickell. I thought him bringing in Phil Longo, the OC from North Carolina, who's got a great resume. I thought that was a really good decision too. So I'd say the SEC kind of being slow out of the gate, and then Wisconsin so far would probably be the letdowns that have kind of stood out the most. I expected Alabama to struggle a little bit just because they had so many unknowns. You're changing your philosophy. You change both coordinators. You got a quarterback that's inexperienced, and to me right now it looks like you're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole with what you want Jalen Milroe to do with a 3-step, 5-step. Go through everything and instead of just letting that dog eat.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of Colorado, do you see Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders as being Heisman finalists and being those guys that can work their way into the Heisman top?
Well, right now, I think Shedeur definitely. Now, when it comes down to it, Colorado, you got to win enough games to be able to win the Heisman. Now, RG3, they won 9 games and he was able to win it. Could Shedeur do that? It's very possible. But look, we're going to find out a lot about Colorado. They're going to have some Heisman opportunities. To have Heisman moments, you need Heisman opportunities. And when you play teams like Oregon and USC and who they got coming down the pipe down the stretch, they're going to have a chance. The question is, can they hold up front? Can they protect him long enough? Because Shedeur is without a doubt an NFL quarterback. You know, the way he handles himself inside the pocket, outside of the pocket, going through his reads, not afraid to throw the check down, not afraid to throw the ball away, and you know, he's got enough wiggle to be effective running the ball. I've been very impressed with the way that he handles the game. I hate the term game manager. Every quarterback is a game manager. If you're not a game manager at quarterback, you can't play quarterback. I feel like that's one of the worst terms in sports. It's like calling a pitcher a game manager. It's just, duh, that's his job.
Yeah.
So, I do think Shedeur has a really good chance. I want to see how long Travis can play this amount of snaps. I know training in elevation helps you, but it's with the physicality, with the beating that you take even playing one side of the ball for a whole season. Trying to stay healthy on one side of the ball is hard enough, let alone both sides. So I think Shedeur for sure.
Well, we'll go with one more question and we'll let you go because we was going to do just a 20-minute thing with you and let you go. But the SEC, you know, as we look at the SEC, what makes it so down this year in your regard? Is it the quality? Is it just teams not playing really well, or?
Well, you know, I think it's still early in the season. You know, I would not be shocked if you see the SEC as this goes on. And, you know, we interviewed Cole Kubelik today for our game day special that we're releasing on Saturday. And, you know, he was talking about a point that one of his co-hosts, Greg McElroy, made, you know, and it's everybody, it's across the board. You don't hit as much in preseason as you used to. So I think you're going to see some teams make some jumps. But that's across the board. It's not an excuse. I think what the reason you're seeing is you look at the amount of quarterbacks that you had to replace in the SEC compared to other places, including the Pac-12 that seems like they returned to every quarterback possible. And then Oregon State added DJU, who's been a great fit over there so far. We'll see once Oregon State gets into a little bit more competition. But I think you blend the changeover at quarterback. I mean, look at Carson Beck. Hadn't got a ton of reps at Georgia. Jalen Milroe hadn't got a ton of reps at Alabama. Tennessee replacing Hendon Hooker with a guy who's, you know, the jury's still out on. Go up and down the board. I mean, you know, Auburn bringing in Peyton Thorne, who does have some experience but hadn't played in the SEC. It does seem that the changeover at quarterbacks had some effect. And look, I think you go back to the transfer portal. The rich are always going to get richer. That's how it works. But you're seeing some middle ground Power 5 teams really be able to bring in guys who have experience and supplement their roster, and some guys who are really good players who may not have gotten a ton of playing time at the place they were come in and have a chance to shine. So I think it's a mix of a couple things, but I would wait. You know, if some of these SEC teams still look bad, you know, in the next 3 or 4 weeks, you know, even as we get into conference play, then I would call it down. I think just because they've had a rough 2-week stretch. It's a long season. You guys know this better than anybody. I mean, it's a marathon, not a sprint in college football. So we're going to find out soon. But I think that's kind of one of the symptoms of the overall, you know, not decline of the Southeastern Conference, but the slow start out of the gate.
Well, and you got Devin Leary too at Kentucky. That's another one. He hasn't really played.
He's got to play better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's off with his receivers. There's just something, they're not clicking together. But eventually they'll get it going, and Liam Cohen will get that offense together, and they'll figure it out. But
early in the season, I'll just say this before we ride out. Early in the season, a lot of times the offense is behind the defenses. You'll see offenses, especially with new quarterbacks. That's why continuity is such a big deal, right? I mean, you look at Quinn Ewers, who's thrown to Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders and all these guys. They've done 7-on-7 for 2 years now. You get a new quarterback in there, especially one that comes in during the summer. You know, game reps is impossible to simulate. Going through one fall camp, it's really hard to build that chemistry. I talk about this, you know, with Peyton Thorne at Auburn. What was my biggest concern for Peyton Thorne at Auburn, outside of seeing if he can run the ball well enough to be effective in the RPO, was how good is that chemistry, that in-game chemistry, when you've got to be able to communicate when you can't talk and put that ball on the back shoulder, or know when somebody's breaking in on a choice route or an option route. That stuff just doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So I think we're seeing a little bit of that across the board too.
Yeah, one more thing before you go. There was a little clip that I watched. I guess it might have been this week, where you had Tim Brando on, and he said, "Who's the Texas A&M of being Texas A&M?" And he said, "It's Texas A&M again this year." And I kind of laughed, and I thought, you know, Tim Brando he don't cut no corners. He just goes after it. And
Timmy B doesn't shy away for sure. And I'll say this about A&M. Look, when we watch A&M lose games, here recently in the past. They've looked inept pretty much in every phase, right? I think that game said as much about Miami as it did about A&M. I thought Miami's physicality, especially on defense, I mean, they got some NFL cats running around there. But, I thought Connor Wegman still looked pretty good. He had the one pick where the receiver fell down. I was just shocked that Miami had so much success through the air because Miami, make no mistake, through Mario Cristobal, their head coach, they want to be a run-to-pass team. They want to be a team that puts on the ground, beats you in play action, throws quick game, and takes a shot over the top. They kind of went bombs over Baghdad against A&M, and Restrepo and that group absolutely went nuts. I think it kind of shell-shocked Texas A&M. And look, A&M caught a couple breaks on special teams too. Blocked a punt early in the game. Miami dropped a punt that A&M was able to score on. So you take those gifts away, it could have been even worse. But with the way the SEC looks somewhat wide open this year, I wouldn't panic yet. If I was an A&M fan, that defense has just got to hold up more.
But Jake, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for being on the show. I'm a huge fan of yours. Keep doing what you're doing with Crain and Company, and we'll catch you on the flip side, man.
Definitely, man. Well, anytime y'all need me, just holler. Got a lot of respect for what y'all are doing. Enjoy chopping it up with you guys and talking on social media. And yeah, you can catch us. We're live each weekday, 6:30 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central, 7:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. There's only 2 time zones I really know. Outside of that, just look at your phone or whatever.
Unless you live in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, you live out there. I mean, the live's kind of hard to catch because it's so early, but it stays on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and Spotify basically forever. We have a game day show on Saturday and then a Sunday recap in the morning. So we're putting out content every day, taking live calls, got a live chat where we answer questions. So yeah, hop in there. Let's have fun.
Have a good one, man.